Have you ever looked at someone's success and quietly wondered, what are they doing that I'm not? Not just what they say they do, but what they actually live, breathe, repeat, and build their life around. Because success doesn't happen from a single moment of brilliance. It isn't luck. It isn't just hard work. It's something far more subtle, more consistent, and far more powerful. It's in the habits, the quiet rituals no one sees, the repeated choices that seem small in the moment, but over time shape everything, the mindset, the outcomes, the life. Highly successful people don't live by chance. They live by design. Their success is built on patterns, not on accidents. And those patterns are buried in their daily actions, in the things they do when no one is watching. Most people wait for the right time, for clarity, for motivation. But the truth is, people who rise to the top don't wait. They build, they decide, they act, and then they repeat over and over until excellence becomes their default setting. Here's the most overlooked truth. You don't get your future. You get your habits. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. That's why some people keep growing, while others stay stuck in the same loop year after year, making promises they don't keep and chasing motivation that never lasts. But if you understand how successful people build their days, if you understand the habits they choose and why they choose them, you begin to see a different path. One you can walk to. Habits are not just tasks, they are statements. Every habit says something about what you believe, about your potential, your self-worth, your purpose. Successful people build habits that align with who they want to become. And then they keep showing up, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days. That's the difference. It's not that they don't face resistance. It's that they've made growth a non-negotiable. They've trained themselves to keep going, even when their feelings beg them to stop. And because of that, they evolve faster, stronger, more resilient. They've learned that motivation is not the starting line, discipline is. But here's the good news. These habits aren't magic. They're not reserved for the elite or the gifted. They are choices available to anyone willing to trade excuses for action, anyone willing to break free from the comfort zone and rewrite the pattern. If you're watching this, it's because deep down you already know you were made for more. You felt it in the quiet moments, in the late nights, in the voice that won't let you settle. There's a version of you that's stronger, sharper, more focused. That version isn't a fantasy. It's a possibility. And the bridge between who you are now and who you want to be is habit. So here's what we're doing. We're pulling back the curtain, not just to inspire, but to equip. Not to overwhelm, but to clarify. Because behind every wildly successful life, there are patterns, 10 powerful, consistent habits that fuel momentum, sharpen focus, and build an unstoppable mindset. Stay with this until the end. Because by the time it's over, you won't just know what to do. You'll feel the urgency to start. You'll understand how small daily choices can compound into something extraordinary. And you'll see clearly that success was never out of reach. It was always in your hands. It still is. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were meant to be before fear, doubt, and distraction got in the way. This is about power, your power. The power to shift your life by shifting your habits, to lead instead of follow, to build instead of wish, to choose action over comfort, growth over ease, and purpose over passivity. Because in the end, success isn't something you chase. It's something you become. And it starts not tomorrow, not someday, but today with one new habit, one decision, one step. Let's take it. If success begins with a decision, then it's built every morning with intention. The way you begin your day doesn't just influence your focus, it defines it. That first hour after you wake up is sacred. It's your mind's most open window, the moment when your thoughts haven't yet been polluted by the noise of the world. What you choose to do in that hour either sets you up for alignment or distraction, for clarity or chaos. Highly successful people understand this. They don't stumble into their mornings, they command them. They wake with purpose, not urgency. There's no frantic checking of messages, no scrolling through endless feeds. Instead, there is structure, there is space, there is stillness. Because in that stillness, they regain control over their thoughts. They sharpen their direction before the day tries to pull them in 100 different directions. When your morning is reactive, your entire day becomes reactive. You're constantly responding to other people's demands, constantly pulled by what's urgent instead of what's important. But when you begin your day with clarity, you lead. You decide what matters. You move with intention, not impulse. This is where most people lose their power. Before they've even had their first cup of coffee, they start in a rush, checking notifications, diving into stress. But success doesn't start with pressure. It starts with presence. And those who win long-term have mastered this truth. If you win the morning, you win the day. There's something profoundly powerful about keeping a promise to yourself before the world even wakes up. It might be 10 minutes of silence. It might be writing down 3 goals. It might be movement, reading, breathing, or prayer. The activity itself matters less than the act of ownership. The discipline to choose your state instead of waiting for the world to decide it for you, that's what separates the successful from the stagnant. Your brain craves structure. It loves predictability. And what you feed it consistently becomes your norm. That's why morning habits aren't just routines. They are programming. You're telling your subconscious what matters. You're building an identity, a mindset that says, I am focused. I am in control. I know what I'm here to do. It doesn't matter how small it starts. What matters is that you start, that you choose presence over autopilot, that you design a morning that reflects the future you want, not the past you're trying to escape. The truth is, how you start your day is how you start your life, over and over again. And you don't have to overhaul everything overnight. You just have to begin with one solid win. Wake up and choose clarity. Choose a habit that strengthens your mind instead of numbing it. Choose something that reminds you that you're not just surviving, you're building. Because successful people don't leave their mindset to chance. They build it every morning, brick by brick. They plant seeds of confidence before doubt even has a chance to whisper. They tune into their purpose before the world tries to distract them. They move with calm, centered energy because they've trained their mind to follow structure, not chaos. Ask yourself this: what does the best version of you do first thing in the morning? Now, start doing that. Even if it's only for 5 minutes, start small, start quiet, but start with power, because that small decision will echo throughout your entire day. And days become weeks, weeks become months, and months become the life you live. Most people underestimate the power of their mornings. They think it's just another routine. But it's not. It's your foundation. It's the one part of your day you have full control over. And when you master that part, everything else starts to shift. You stop reacting. You start creating. So if you're serious about becoming more, achieving more, living more, don't start with big goals. Start with the first hour. Own it. Defend it. Use it. Because in that hour lies your focus, your strength, your momentum. The day belongs to those who take it before it's taken from them. And when you start stacking intentional mornings, something incredible happens. You begin to feel different. You begin to think different. And then, without even realizing it, you begin to act different. You start walking like someone who knows where they're going, because you do. You're no longer just moving through life. You're leading it. That's the shift. That's the edge. Not more effort, but more intention. Not chasing the clock, but commanding the day. You don't need to do what everyone else does. You need to do what moves you forward. And that begins not someday, but tomorrow morning. Let that be your first victory. Let it remind you what's possible. Because when you win the morning, you don't just get a better day, you start becoming a better version of yourself. And that, more than anything, is the habit that transforms everything. When your mornings are intentional, your decisions become clearer. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. But even with a strong start, there's one force that will constantly try to pull you off track: distraction. Not just the obvious kind like your phone or endless notifications, but the more dangerous kind: mental clutter, emotional noise, and the addiction to being busy instead of being effective. Highly successful people understand that focus isn't just a skill, it's survival. In a world designed to steal your attention, the ability to concentrate on what truly matters is a rare and powerful advantage. Every distraction comes with a cost. Not just lost time, but lost momentum, lost clarity, lost belief in your own ability to finish what you start. And that's a cost successful people refuse to pay. They aren't just disciplined with their habits, they're ruthless with their priorities. They know that every yes to something meaningless is a no to something essential. So they cut, they simplify, they protect their space like it's sacred, because it is. Your environment, your schedule, your mind, they all reflect your standards. And when you raise those standards, everything around you starts to align. Focus isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters and ignoring the rest. It's about getting clear on your mission and filtering every task, every demand, every distraction through one question: does this bring me closer to who I want to become? If the answer is no, it's not worth your time. because time is not renewable. Attention is not infinite. You cannot afford to waste either on things that don't move you forward. Most people stay stuck not because they lack talent, but because they lack clarity. Their minds are scattered. Their energy is divided. They chase everything and catch nothing. But successful people know that progress comes from depth, not width. They go deep, deep into their craft, deep into their purpose, deep into the present moment. And that depth creates momentum, confidence, results. It's easy to confuse motion with progress, to be busy without being productive, to fill your day with tasks and still feel unfulfilled. But here's the truth. Busyness is the enemy of greatness, because when you're always doing, you forget to think, you forget to breathe, you forget to reflect. And reflection is where growth lives. This is why successful people build systems that remove the guesswork. They block time, they schedule breaks, they turn off noise, they create environments that support clarity, because they know that willpower alone isn't enough. Your environment must support your focus, or it will slowly destroy it. If you want to change your life, start by changing how you protect your attention. Stop letting everyone have access to your energy. Not every message deserves a reply. Not every opinion deserves your concern. Not every opportunity deserves your yes. If it doesn't align with your values, your goals, or your peace, it's a distraction in disguise. Clarity is the compass. Focus is the fuel, and discipline is the bridge. Discipline doesn't mean being perfect. It means being committed. Committed to filtering your time through purpose. Committed to showing up for what matters, even when it's inconvenient. Especially then. Because those are the moments that separate the distracted from the determined. And here's the truth most people avoid. Focus feels uncomfortable at first. It requires saying no. It requires stepping away from constant stimulation. It requires sitting with boredom, with stillness, with silence. But that's exactly where power is built. In the quiet, in the discipline, in the deliberate choice to give your energy only to the things that deserve it. You will never rise while chasing everything. Growth requires sacrifice. Achievement demands simplicity. And real success is not about having more. It's about doing less with more intensity. When you channel your focus, you create flow. And when you're in flow, your work becomes deeper. Your results become stronger. Your confidence becomes unshakable. So take control. Audit your attention. Get brutally honest about what's stealing your time. Ask yourself every single day, is this making me better? Is this helping me grow? Is this bringing me closer to the life I want? If not, cut it. Simplify, refocus, recommit, because the future belongs to those who can lock in, who can eliminate noise, who can go all in on what truly matters. Don't chase everything. Master something. Build your focus like a muscle. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. And when you begin living with that level of intention, everything changes. Your work becomes sharper. Your energy becomes purer. Your goals become real. You stop drifting. You start leading. You move from chaos to clarity, from noise to power. Success isn't about doing everything. It's about doing the right things over and over with full presence. That is the habit. That is the path. That is the edge. Focused mind, focused actions, focused life. When your focus sharpens, your power compounds. But focus alone isn't enough, because even the clearest vision is meaningless without the strength to follow through. And that strength is built through one thing: discipline. The ability to do what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like doing it. Is where most people fall, not because they're incapable, but because they're waiting to feel ready. They're waiting for motivation to strike like lightning, not realizing that motivation is unreliable. It's fleeting. It shows up after you move, not before. Waiting on motivation is a trap. Discipline is the way out. Highly successful people don't depend on how they feel. They don't ask themselves if they're in the mood to show up. They've made a decision that doesn't get renegotiated based on emotion. Their habits aren't controlled by convenience. They're anchored in commitment. And that's the reason they win when others quit. That's why they keep climbing when others settle. Discipline is doing the work when no one is watching. It's waking up early even when you're tired. It's pushing through when your mind is full of excuses. It's choosing consistency over comfort. Because deep down, you know this already, comfort is the enemy of progress. Growth only lives outside of it. And if you always choose what's easy, you'll always stay where you are. But there's something powerful that happens when you train yourself to keep going. You build trust, not with the world, but with yourself. And that trust is everything. Because when you trust yourself to follow through, your confidence grows, your identity shifts, You stop seeing discipline as punishment and start seeing it as power. You become the kind of person who doesn't just set goals, you finishes them. This is how successful people create momentum that others can't understand. They don't have more time. They don't have fewer challenges, but they've built a mindset that doesn't bend in the face of resistance. They've learned how to do hard things on purpose because every time they do, they get stronger. Most people try to avoid resistance, but resistance is not your enemy. It's your proving ground. It's the test life gives you before it gives you the reward. And when you lean into it, you discover that you are capable of far more than you imagined. The limits you believed were real, they're not. They're built from hesitation, not reality. And you break them by taking action over and over again. Action isn't just movement, it's transformation. It rewires your brain. It builds resilience. It teaches you that even on your worst days, you are still in control. That's what discipline gives you. Control, freedom, strength. Not overnight, but day after day in small, powerful steps. Discipline is not about doing everything. It's about doing the things that matter most, even when they feel hard, especially when they feel hard, because that's when the real shift happens. Not in comfort, but in pressure. Not when it's easy, but when it's tempting to quit and you don't. When you keep going, not because you have to, but because you promised yourself you would. That promise is everything. It's your contract with your future. And every time you honor it, you rise. You stop waiting for the perfect time and you become the person who creates it. You stop looking for motivation and you become the source of your own drive. You stop relying on conditions and you build a life based on decisions. Ask yourself this: what would your life look like if you became a little more disciplined every single day? If you pushed through instead of backing down, if you finished what you started, if you did what needed to be done, not when it was easy, but when it was right. You already have everything you need: the strength, the mind, the potential. What's missing is the structure, the repetition, the consistent choice to do what your goals demand, not what your feelings want, because feelings fade, but the results of discipline remain.
This is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. The dreamers wait, the achievers work.
The dreamers hope, the achievers build, and that building happens in the quiet moments, the cold mornings, the long nights, the hard decisions, the ones that shape your character, the ones that forge your future. There's a fire inside you waiting to be fed by action. And every act of discipline is a spark. Every rep, every page, every choice, they all count. You may not see the change immediately, but it's happening. Every single time you choose growth over ease, you move forward, and that movement adds up. It builds momentum, and momentum, once it's yours, is unstoppable. So don't chase the feeling, build the habit. Don't wait for the spark. Become the fire. Discipline is not the enemy, it's the key. And once you unlock it, you'll never again question whether you're capable. You'll know because you've proven it not once, but every day when you showed up, when it mattered, when it was hard, and you did it anyway. Discipline creates movement, but reflection creates direction. Without reflection, you may run fast, but in circles. You may work hard, but toward the wrong outcome. That's why successful people don't just take action. They also pause, assess, and adjust. They look in the mirror not to judge, but to understand. Because growth without awareness is just noise. And awareness without honesty is useless. Highly successful people have the courage to face themselves without flinching. They ask hard questions. They dig deep. They confront their patterns, their flaws, their limitations, not to beat themselves up, but to rise above them. They are radically honest because pretending never leads to progress. It only delays it. Most people avoid this kind of self-honesty. They stay busy to escape themselves. They distract, they numb, they defend. But avoidance has a cost. It keeps you stuck in patterns you no longer see. It makes you believe your limitations are permanent, and it makes you believe your excuses are valid. But the moment you decide to look inward with clarity and courage, everything begins to change. Self-awareness isn't about being perfect. It's about knowing where you stand. It's the ability to say, this is where I am. This is what I'm doing that's holding me back, and this is what I must change. That level of honesty is rare, but it's the foundation of true success because you can't fix what you won't face, and you can't grow past what you refuse to see. Successful people are learners by nature, not because they're chasing knowledge for the sake of it, but because they understand that learning fuels evolution. They read, they study, they listen, not just to gain information, but to gain perspective. Because one new insight can unlock months of confusion. One new question can open a door to a breakthrough. The mind that keeps learning stays sharp. And a sharp mind doesn't just survive, it thrives. This is not about collecting facts. It's about developing wisdom. The kind of wisdom that comes from combining what you know with what you've lived. From studying your failures, your reactions, your progress, from asking yourself again and again, what did I learn today? And how can I apply it tomorrow? People who grow consistently are not the ones who know everything. They're the ones who know they don't. That humility is a superpower. It keeps your ego out of the driver's seat. It keeps your curiosity alive, and it keeps you open to change, which is the only constant on the path to greatness. But learning without application is just entertainment. You don't need more inspiration. You need more implementation. You need to take what you know and turn it into what you do. That's the turning point. That's where growth moves from theory to reality. So ask yourself often, what am I doing that's working? What am I doing that's holding me back? What must I stop? What must I start? Be honest. Be ruthless. Because your future depends on the accuracy of your answers. You cannot afford to lie to yourself, not if you want to evolve. Growth is never comfortable, but it is always worth it. Because with every honest reflection, you free yourself from limitations, from old stories, from patterns that no longer serve who you're becoming. You start to see that the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not as wide as it once seemed. It's made of decisions, new ones, better ones, aligned ones. And the most powerful decision you can make is to become your own coach, your own guide, your own mirror, to challenge yourself with compassion, to correct yourself with love, to hold yourself to a standard that reflects your potential, not your past. The world doesn't owe you clarity. It doesn't owe you growth. It doesn't owe you success. Those are things you give yourself when you decide to live with intention, when you choose to reflect, and when you commit to adjusting instead of justifying. This is the mindset of the highest achievers. They are constantly learning, constantly refining, constantly evolving. They don't fear feedback. They seek it. They don't resist change. They chase it because they know the truth. If you're not growing, you're declining. If you're not learning, you're becoming irrelevant. And if you're not reflecting, you're repeating. There is no neutral in the game of life. You're either becoming more or you're slowly settling for less. And settling is not your path. You weren't built to coast. You weren't born to blend in. You are here to expand, to challenge, to rise. And that rising begins when you commit to knowing yourself fully. Not just your strengths, but your blind spots. Not just your wins, but your wounds. Because from that place of full awareness, real transformation begins. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop blaming and start building. So lean into reflection. Make it a habit. Make it a ritual. Because every insight you gain sharpens your edge. Every lesson you absorb builds your armor. And every moment of self-honesty clears the path ahead. The truth will set you free, but only if you're brave enough to face it. Be that brave, be that clear, be that unstoppable. Self-honesty brings clarity, and clarity demands action. Once you see the truth, you can no longer unsee it. You either rise to meet it or retreat into old patterns. That's the real test. Not whether you know what to do, but whether you're willing to do it before it's perfect. Because that's where most people stall. They wait, they overthink, they hesitate. Not because they lack desire, but because they're afraid to begin without guarantees. But highly successful people don't operate from fear. They operate from courage. They take action when things are unclear. They move forward when the path isn't fully lit. They don't wait for perfect timing because they know the only time that matters is now. Action creates clarity. Momentum reveals the path. You become stronger by starting, not by sitting still. Perfection is a lie we tell ourselves to justify delay. It's a mask for fear, a shield against failure. But waiting to be ready is the fastest way to miss your moment. You don't need perfection. You need motion. Or you need to step forward even if your hands are shaking, even if your voice is uncertain, even if you don't have all the answers yet. Because confidence isn't something you start with. It's something you earn through movement. Successful people understand that success is messy. Progress is imperfect. There are stumbles, setbacks, doubts, but they act anyway. They build in motion. They course correct on the go. They learn as they move. And because of that, they grow faster. They break through while others hold back. They finish while others are still planning. You don't need the full map to take the first step. You just need direction. You just need conviction. You just need to trust that the process will reveal what the planning never could. Action is the great separator. It's what turns potential into progress. It's what transforms ideas into results. Your mind will try to protect you from the unknown. It will whisper fears, magnify risks, convince you that waiting is safer. But the longer you wait, the heavier the resistance becomes. Doubt grows louder with time. And the only way to silence it is through motion, through proof, through momentum. Every step you take is a message to yourself. I am no longer a prisoner of hesitation. I am no longer controlled by fear. I move anyway. I rise anyway. I act anyway. And with every small move, that identity takes root. You stop being someone who hesitates and become someone who executes. You stop watching and start doing. And your life begins to shift because your energy has shifted. People who achieve more don't wait to feel inspired. They don't wait to feel like it. They show up when it's hard. They show up when it's boring. They show up when no one is clapping. That's the habit. That's the edge. Showing up again and again until it clicks.